with us on that countdown timer. This is Aliyah from the Asia eHealth Information Network. Welcome to this introductory session to the first AeHIN Academy. This orientation webinar will give you an overview of the eHealth Capacity Building Program, the first offering of the AeHIN Academy. For the meantime, this will take the place of our regular AeHIN Hour, which happens twice a month, 15 UTC GMT +8. Our time now in the Philippines is 3:01 p.m. and we are broadcasting from the World Health Organization Western Pacific Regional Office in Manila, Philippines. Before we start our session, please be reminded of 4 things in this meeting: the platform, how to participate in our program, and our program details, and our email feedback. First off, we're now using Cisco WebEx Meeting Center, and if you are encountering problems as you participate, please log out the session and rejoin the meeting room immediately. As you can see on our screen, our meeting room number is 860-304-497, and a password is Manila123. Second, your mic will be mute during the meeting, but you can actively participate in 3 ways in this meeting: by sending your feedback, chatting your response, and posting your questions. Send your feedback by clicking the feedback button on the right side of your screen below the participants window. On the drop-down menu, you can respond by a yes or no, say the presentation if it's too fast or too slow, appreciate the speaker with an applause, and send your virtual laughter. How cool is that? Chat your response by locating the chat box below the feedback button. Select who do you want to chat and type your message inside the chat box. You can also pose your questions by selecting the person whom do you want to ask your question and then just send your question away. In this meeting, all questions should be addressed to me because I will be the one who will consolidate the questions and moderate this session. So I think now we're done on how to participate. Let's go to the program details. If you can hear my voice very well, please chat on the chat window located at the right panel of your screen. Yes, I agree with you, Usamong Marma, that and also to push up. Joshi, all microphone will be muted in this meeting. I repeat that. All microphone will be muted in this meeting to facilitate better recording and better sending of our messages for this meeting. So this introductory session and the first AeHIN Academy on eHealth Capacity Building will run for an hour. And as I've said a while ago, all your questions should be sent to the host, and that's me, Aliyah Evangelista. At the middle of the session, the speaker will pause to address the questions during the discussion. And lastly, please check your emails for the evaluation forms and the follow-up on this meeting. So can I hear a chat from everyone? Do you hear my voice well? Can you say a yes on your screen? Thank you so much. Loud and clear. Thanks, Christophe. Thanks, Mia. Thanks, Adrian. Thank you so much for all the feedback that I've been receiving. So that's it. That's the 4 things you have to remember in the session: the platform, how to participate, the program, the email, and the email feedback. Now, I would like to introduce you to our lecturer for this afternoon and for the entire AeHIN Academy on eHealth Capacity Building, Peter Drury. Peter has 25 years of in-depth experience on health information systems at all levels of the UK National Health Service, or NHS, and of information and communications use in health and community development in many countries. With early years in West Africa, degrees in geography, social research, and a PhD in sociology, Peter developed his career in information management and ICT policy development for the NHS, concluding it with 5 years as head of the Information Policy Unit for the Department of Health. He then refocused on health in the developing countries and enjoyed 6 years as Director for Health and Development in Cisco's Emerging Markets Consultancy team. Since leaving Cisco in 2012, Peter has provided consultancy support to the World Health Organization, delivering eHealth strategy, training to people from over 30 countries, and to the International Telecommunications Union on ICT support for women's and children's health. In recent consultancy work for Promethean, he has also been articulating the need for capacity building in community learning systems, which span communities in crisis to the active participation of communities in smart cities. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce to you our lecturer for this session and for the rest of our first AeHIN Academy offering on eHealth capacity building, Peter Jury. Hi, Peter. Good morning there in UK and good afternoon here in the Philippines. Your mic is now on. You can take the session away.
Okay. Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much indeed for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you again virtually. I'm saying again because I had the pleasure and the privilege of attending the second AeHIN General Meeting, 23rd and 24th of September last year. I just need to share my desktop, I think.
Okay, so if you prefer that, I can pass the ball to you. You're now the presenter. Just click share your desktop and we're on.
Yeah. Okay. How's that? Can you see that okay?
Yes, your screen is now on and we're ready to go.
Right. Okay. So, yes, a pleasure to be with you again. And as Leah said, this is the first session, and really it's kind of a preview, an introduction to a series of 8 webinars that are focused on creating an enabling environment to support national eHealth strategies. And I had the pleasure of working with some of you in explaining national eHealth strategies from the point of view of the WHO ITU eHealth strategy toolkit, and that was when I was in Manila in September. So at that meeting, there was both the presentation about the eHealth strategy and also the AeHIN general meeting going on. And at that meeting and on the website afterwards, it was quite clear that within AeHIN, there was an understanding that while there are existing trainings and skills development offerings that have been organised outside the arena of eHealth to develop competences to support eHealth strategies, it's actually difficult for health organisations and individuals to be able to understand how to find the ones that best meet their requirements for eHealth in their local setting. So that's the background to the course that we're going to be developing over the next 8 sessions during the month of May, basically. So the challenge really is to help you understand what are your own particular requirements, and to be able to find the capacity building arrangements that will best suit you. So this is a part of the AeHIN Academy eHealth capacity building roadmap. We want to understand how the key ideas in eHealth strategy development, so that there's strategy, planning process, taking an architectural approach, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, addressing standards and quality, how those things actually help you decide, okay, well, actually this is where I need to get some more capacity development, some more skills. And then there are a range of different skills and training from a variety of sources. So what is it? How do I go about identifying which are the appropriate ones for me or for you? And what I'm hoping is that both today and during the 8 sessions that lie ahead during May, there will be an open and a participatory approach, and we'll have questions and answers in the sessions. Today is an hour. The proper 8 sessions will each be 1.5 hours. So we definitely need to have some breaks in that for questions and answers. And then for countries that have got participating educational institutions, there will be the opportunity to earn the AeHIN, an AeHIN certificate of completion. So at the end of the course, what I hope is that I help you to make some informed choices. I'm not in a position to tell you what to choose to do, but what I can do is to try and help you take a well-informed decision. Now, in a sense, my text for this course was very creatively and succinctly given by AeHIN, and I think this is a very powerful diagram. I hope you're familiar with it, but if you're not, don't worry, because provided you enroll on the course, by the end of the 8 sessions, you will have understood what the issues are here. I don't take a one-for-one approach to developing this roadmap, but what I'm going to talk about does align to it. There are some standards, for example, that appear in more than one place, and so that means that although it does give a very powerful and elegant and simple and engaging picture, in practice, when you get into the detail, there's a little bit more that is interrelated, shall we say, and I hope that my presentation will help you make sense of that. So if I can just say how I'm proposing to summarize that diagram into the 8 themes that lie ahead, then it's like this. So, and I'm going to step through these in more detail in the slides that follow. But basically, I'm following the AeHIN structure, so talking initially about leadership, institutional readiness, enterprise architecture, and then moving into standards and interoperability and health information exchange. Again, where interoperability fits best is difficult to be definitive about. I think this is a reasonable way of describing it. So having got your leadership lined up, your institution organized, having thought about the way you want to go about designing the programs of work that you need to do, having focused on the standards and the interoperability issues that you have, and then tested that you can exchange that information, there's the stage of actually delivery, actually making things happen on the ground, and then monitoring what's happened, evaluating that. And in the last session, I want to review what we've done, to refine the understanding of it, to fill in some of the gaps that may have emerged and to get your thoughts about how it can be refreshed and improved, and then to encourage you to think about getting training or indeed retraining so that you've got the right skills. Okay, so let me then start with webinar 1, which is to do with leadership that delivers an action plan. And this first webinar really is a review of the National eHealth Strategy Toolkit that I mentioned. It's kind of a revision of that. But I want to make clear right from the outset that although the approach is based on the National eHealth Strategy Toolkit, the important thing about that toolkit is not just that it helps countries develop good national eHealth strategies, it's that the basic approach, the basic issues that the toolkit raises are the issues that you will also need to address whatever level you're working at. So if you're working at a regional level or a district level or at a hospital level and a community level, that toolkit contains issues that are relevant. So it goes from national to local, and obviously parts of this will differ in terms of their emphasis, but it is important to be able to understand the way in which the basic principles of the toolkit can be applied. So when I talk about global business drivers, such as, for example, the increasing importance of addressing the experience that patients have, of dealing with issues around population health, or of reducing per capita costs, these are indeed global issues, but you need to both understand them and be able to interpret them in your local circumstances, whatever they are. So, as I say, this first webinar will be a kind of a refresh of the toolkit. We'll look at some of the need for best practices and guidance and certified capacity building. We'll look at parts 1, 2, and 3 of the toolkit. And to illustrate the basic point that health services are best understood as being on a continuum of enterprise, going from national to local, I'll also refer to some of the work that Herman Tolentino talked through with you on population health at an AeHIN Hour earlier this year. I think he provided some very helpful stuff. So I am keen to kind of make the connections back to things that you are already familiar with. So this is one example that I hope will also help you to refresh your recollection of what Herman Tolentino was saying. So the crucial thing really is that we understand why it's important to engage with stakeholders and why we need to get the right governance arrangements in place. So if I can move on to just giving a preview of the second webinar on institutional readiness, you'll see that now I've got some logos for particular standards and trainings on the diagram, and what you will see for the remaining webinars is basically a structure that in the top half, so the first part of the webinar in a sense is saying, well, this is the relevant bit of the National eHealth Toolkit. These are some of the issues that we're going to be discussing, and then we'll focus on, okay, so what are the capacity building opportunities that are there to help you deliver on that strategy. And you'll remember that the first part of the strategy is about developing a vision, and the second part is about having some action planning, some action lines. And it's great to have a vision, it's vital to have a vision, but it doesn't mean anything at all until you've actually delivered something on the action lines. So I want to make sure that during this session we go through the important principles around IT governance, which I know AeHIN has already spent quite a bit of time and effort developing, making sure that we're clear about the leadership structures, processes that are relevant to help an organisation make sure that its investment in technology helps it to achieve its objectives and to manage the risks. So those are broadly some of the key issues that arise from the eHealth strategy toolkit. And then when you think about, okay, so how am I going to do that? Well, some of the standards and trainings that I think will be relevant for you are indicated here. So if we take the issue of corporate governance, for example, how can the board of an organisation determine what approach is appropriate for its organisation to be developing? Then those are issues that ISO 38500 addresses. If you want to look at the way in which control objectives for information and related technology, that's COBIT version 5, can be used, this is really focusing on how you can deliver business needs using IT resources in a controlled way. What are the processes, what are the goals, what are the metrics that you need to be thinking about to make sure that you can actually deliver on the business needs? And then there are a range of IT infrastructure library resources that are very relevant in the ITIL version 3 range of standards and support. And again, we'll go through those. And usually, when you look at what is said about these standards and guidelines, people are very keen to say that they don't overlap with each other. They complement each other. And they each do have a particular focus. And I hope that what I'm able to work through with you will make you feel comfortable that you know which aspects of the range of offerings available on the market will be of most relevance to you. So webinar 3 then is looking at basically enterprise architecture. And broadly speaking, the challenge is to understand the business, the data, the technology and the applications that you have in place at the moment, at the current time, and work out, okay, so where do we want to get to in the future? And that's why the idea of architecture as a process is an important one. It's not a static thing. This is something that evolves as time goes on and as people's understanding of their requirements evolve. So it's important that we are evolving dynamic organizations. But when I say organizations, you can have a number of organizations within a health system, but actually the national eHealth strategy, for example, is thinking about the system from end to end. So it's a whole enterprise. It's rather like the analogy is with a city and the building. So in a city, the urban planner is focused around the whole of the city, whereas a building architect will be concerned with how a particular organisation, a particular building actually works well. In the health sector, the equivalent to the city is kind of a health enterprise, the whole health system, and then within that there may very well be some specific solutions that need to be architected for a particular health service facility, for example. So the idea of enterprise architecture is to help you take some good and structured decisions at a number of different levels over a period of time. And that isn't easy. And there have been a number of architectures that have emerged to help people make sense of that. And we'll talk through some of them, but pay probably particular attention to TOGAF 9. And again, I know that Sunil Kempegowda gave you a session fairly recently on TOGAF and Archimate, which is basically standardizing the notation for enterprise architecture with TOGAF. So that's very helpful. But there are other offerings, such as the federal enterprise architecture, that I will also touch on. And there are organisations such as Leading Practice, who offer training to help alignment and comparison and unify different enterprise standards. And you'll see inside that cowboy's lasso a whole plethora of different acronyms for various enterprise architecture standards. So a difficult area, but we'll focus on those which seem to be de facto the ones that are of most relevance to you. So now then, as I promised I would do in these sessions, it will be helpful for me, certainly, to just get some feedback from Aliyah, who I hope has been having some questions from you while I've been speaking. So, Aliyah, do you have any questions for me to try and answer?
Yes, thank you so much, Peter. On that, there are several questions on our meeting in our chat box and in our Q&A panel from Dina Ningrum. I know the meaning of the answer to this question, but I wanted to come from you. What does EAs mean on your slides? What does EA mean?
Yeah, enterprise architecture.
Okay, so that's enterprise architecture. From Raymond Uy, will you touch on HL7 as a requirement for interoperability on webinar 3?
Yes, not in webinar 3. I will touch on it in webinar 4.
Okay, so I think Raymond, Peter will be discussing more on that on his next slide. Another question from Sriyanta De Silva. Will you be giving the slide presentation? Peter, I know that we have agreed that slides will be available to them. But yes, do you agree that we load this in a HingeX account or HingeX website? Basically, HingeX is a portal of technical documents and artifacts on health information system and eHealth. Do you agree on that? That would be available to a wider audience.
Yes, of course. The whole purpose of this is, and indeed what AeHIN is there to do, is to encourage the sharing and learning of eHealth material. So I certainly hope that it will go there. I'm just going to hesitate for a moment right now, because I know that Dr. Alvin is running the slides that I'm producing for these courses past some colleagues for peer review. So I know that the intention is that, yes, they will be in HingeX, but I want to put in there only the version that has been, okay, thanks, I've made available as soon as possible. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make them available as soon as possible, indeed, once they've been finally QA'd. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Another question. Um, uh, there are some feedback that we have received from Zara Realizan. She said that the most relevant for her is webinar 2 on that toolkit. And another response from Dina Ningrum, is it difficult to design generic architectures that are so specific? I think this is a question. Is it difficult to design generic architectures?
Oh, right. So we're thinking about the toolkit. Yeah, when I talk about generic and specific architectures. So in webinar 3, I will talk a little bit more about how the process of action planning in implementing the toolkit helps you think through some of the general principles of applying an architectural approach to the development of eHealth strategy, and then think about the specific architectures that may be particularly relevant for you in looking at a particular component of the strategy. All right, so we'll try and consider both the general and the specific. Both are relevant.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for addressing the question of Dina Ningrum. From Klube, what is MNDE on your slide?
Sorry, my apologies. That is monitoring and evaluation. Yeah.
Okay. Another question, another acronym from Usaymong Marma. He said, "What does DNDAF mean?"
Sorry.
I'm gonna chat that. That's DNDAF. DNDAF. That's Daniel, Nathan, Daniel, Aliyah, and Father. Oh, I think Dr. Alvin has just
Which slide is you referring to?
DNDAF. But Dr. Alvin chat that it's Department of Defense Architecture Framework.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Or Department of National Defense. What's that?
Department of Defense. Yes, that's right. Yeah, DODAF. Yes, Department of Defense Architecture Framework. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize it was one of the many acronyms in that LASU. Yes. Okay.
Okay, some more. I think two more to go, and we'll move on to webinar 4 from Mayan Sambath, from Dr. Mayan. I would recommend Peter to send us a handout or reference in advance for each webinar session. Okay, I will address this on behalf of the AeHIN Academy. Yes, we will provide the slides before the session so that you will have a time to get through the slides and prepare your questions for the discussion part. I think Peter agrees with that, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, yeah. And another feedback from Gia Season, I really need to build on global leadership and how to develop for us to implement eHealth. We hope there will be a module on this. Yes, thank you for adding another topic for this. Maybe global leadership on eHealth could be embedded in one of our topics in our AeHIN Academy. Okay. Yes, we will share ahead. Yes, we will share the slides ahead. Thank you for all the feedback. Okay. So I think we don't have questions anymore. I have visited our Q&A panel and our chat box. I think we're good to go on our next question, next slides. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Aliyah. Okay, so if we then move on to webinar 4 on standards and interoperability. So the toolkit has quite a bit to say about standards and interoperability, as I'm sure you will not be surprised to know. And indeed, the ITU have also developed a lot of material on standards and interoperability, which we'll refer to. I did just want to just mention the 7 core competencies that emerged from the WHO Forum on Health Data Standards and Interoperability that was held in December 2012. And this was basically a gathering of some very eminent people in their field, and they came out with 7 core competencies, which I thought I would just share with you. And I'll just very quickly run through them now. But basically, and this is relevant to the last question actually, the first competency is knowledge of global health. Secondly, knowledge of health informatics standards. Then knowledge of ICT implementation and management in the context of national eHealth strategies. Ability to monitor and evaluate. Knowledge of policy and program planning. Leadership, communications, project and management skills. And then the last one that I would mention is the ability to develop budgets and costing. I think that all of them, except for the last one, I've currently got covered in this webinar series. But one of the things I think we may be a bit light on, and I'll be interested in feedback later on, is to whether there is enough attention being paid to the ability to develop budgets and costings. So that's just an example of how I hope that the process of delivering these webinars will encourage us all to kind of share where we think there are weaknesses and ways in which we may be able to improve what's presented for our colleagues' benefits and indeed those who come or those who will be interested in the similar exchange of knowledge in other countries. Okay, so we'll then talk through some of the examples of the standards needed. So data information, content information exchange, identifiers, privacy and security, technical and business issues. And then, and again, to answer a point that was made previously, things like HL7, SNOMED, CT, LOINT, etc. are examples of the important standards that are needed and the interoperability that enable interoperability issues to be addressed. Okay, so that will be at the heart of webinar 4. And then webinar 5 on health information exchange really, I think, kind of addresses the interoperability issue from the point of view of testing. And also, it is saying there's a meaning of health information in terms of sharing. So in terms of the testing of interoperability so that you can exchange information, then this clearly you need to have the standards and interoperability standards agreed, which is why we covered it in the previous section. So HL7, ICD, SNOMED, DICOM, etc. But I think it's also really important that we understand how interoperability can be actually tested for and delivered. And that's why I think it will be helpful for us to address some of the issues around what's called integrating the healthcare enterprise, and also perhaps to look at some of the progress that's being made in the open HIE environment. So those are examples of testing for interoperability so that you can exchange health information. But there's also the exchange of health information as sharing, and this is where HINGIX really comes into its own. And I think AeHIN is to be congratulated really in establishing this, what I've heard described as a marketplace, where you can find resources, share resources, and develop your own ideas and skills and abilities. So I'm delighted that the question was raised about, well, will this be a contribution into this particular marketplace? And the answer, of course, will be yes, and I hope it proves to be useful there. So that will be what we cover in webinar 5. And then turning on to webinar 6 about delivery, the toolkit in terms of the eHealth action lines has these 4 key components: foundation, solutions, change and adoption, and governance. Excuse me. And we need to work through what the particular issues are that need to be addressed, and then think about, well, okay, how then do we manage the specifics? How do we get these particular actions that need to be taken being delivered? And this is when we get into the very important stage of delivery. How do we deliver projects? And I've listed there some of the trainings that I think we will need to cover. And you'll see that things like COVID and ITIL reappear because they have relevance in this context. Okay, I've put Hinjix as an example of assembling resources, but I should also mention that there are others like Health Unbound, the hub, where you may also be usefully directed to look for other resources. So webinar 7 is concerned with M&E, i.e. monitoring and evaluation. So we've got in part 3 of the toolkit a focus on eHealth outputs, eHealth outcomes, monitoring and evaluation, and governance models. And the toolkit's approach really is to not focus on the program management so much, which we have just covered in webinar 6, but more on the monitoring and evaluation framework. So we'll go through what the toolkit says about that. And then I'll talk through some of the examples of the relevant training that you may find available. And this is with ITIL and with the ISO IEC 20000. So the ITIL standards are very much focused around service management. So they have basically five books of guidance. This sort of library of infrastructure, good practice, addressing issues like how can my IT department succeed over a long period of time, or how do I plan resources, or transition an IT project over to a service for users. So these are when we really get down to addressing nitty-gritty issues, service level agreements, for example. Whereas to complement that, the ISO standards are more around supporting service delivery and business relationships, supplier management, security management, etc. And then the Six Sigma set of standards and approaches are much more focused on outcomes. So I think all of these trainings are relevant, but you probably won't have time to take them all. So what I hope is that in the course of working our way through these lectures, you think about how they relate to what you yourselves are needing in your place of work. And then you can take some better informed decisions as to which ones to go for. So in webinar 8, I think we'll review the series, try and fill in the gaps, try and summarize. I'll be very keen to get suggestions from you for ways in which we can refine it. During the course of the series, we'll be having quizzes each week, which are an important part of the process of getting the certificate for attendance. And they'll be learning, obviously, from the responses that we get to that. What I do want to stress is the importance for keeping strategies dynamic, refreshed, because we're dealing with dynamic and complex systems. So the corollary of that is you need to keep retraining all the time because standards and courses evolve over time. And of course, new opportunities open up. So the massive online courses that are becoming available now, MOOCs, may well be something that we just reflect on and prepare for and think about how AeHIN can it probably is already, but if not, then how it can benefit from using or contributing to MOOCs in the future. So that, in essence, is what the 8 webinars are going to be about. And if I just wanted to kind of summarize what I've been talking about using the analogy of how you assemble the skills you need to develop an eHealth building, in quotation marks, please note. So if we take a building, a house, then ISO 38500 is kind of looking down from on top. This is kind of the corporate management point of view, rather like the roof on a house. Whereas the COBIT related standards are concerned with what is going on with the walls and the layout of the rooms, etc., making it stand up. But of course, it all sits on top of process frameworks like ITIL and Prince. You know, so how do we actually make it happen? The foundations of it. You can't build a house without having good foundations. Equally, you can't build a house without having an architecture. And if you think of organisations as buildings, they too require an architecture like TOGAF, FEA, or one of the others that were mentioned earlier on. But the really important thing is not being able to design a building well and to get it architected correctly. It's how health buildings work together within a health enterprise. So here you see a range of different types of buildings with communications going on within them and between them. And that's the reality of what we're trying to design for. And of course, these interactions keep changing the whole time, which is what makes it all very interesting, of course, and why we need to keep our skills in these areas up to date. And then I just wanted to give a flavour of examples of training courses that are available. And there are different versions of these. This is just an illustration. There is plenty of opportunity to get training at different levels of expertise, covering different topics. And again, I hope that the approach that we're taking during the course will help you take some sensible decisions about what you, in reality, will be able to do. And I recognise that there will be issues to do with cost and availability and time in all of this. But nevertheless, I think what I'm trying to do is to help you move from a refreshed understanding about how eHealth strategies, whether they're at national or regional or at local level, can be put into practice by focusing on the appropriate standards and architectures, etc., that are needed to deliver whatever it is that it's agreed you need to focus on. And in that context, then, what will be appropriate parts of a very big and complex agenda that actually I, all my colleagues, all my staff need to get training on. So that, I hope, will be a useful outcome from these 8 courses, but you have to sign up. This one now, the introductory session, is just kind of a taster, and I hope that as a result of it, you've got an idea now about what the remaining 8 will cover. So the month of May is going to be one in which you can really get up to speed with the ways in which eHealth capacity building can help you interpret and deliver an eHealth strategy. So please sign up before Monday, May the 5th, and I will look forward to being of service to as many of you as possible during the month of May. And I think that gives us about 5 minutes or so for any further questions and answers. So back to you, Alia.
Thank you so much, Peter, for the remaining slides for our AeHIN Academy this coming May. I have a couple, not really a couple, but a lot of questions from our meeting room. I hope our 10 or 9 minutes will be enough for this. From Mohammed Maruf Hakan, is ICD-10, and also from Simon Marma, is ICD-10 and HL7 part of webinar 4?
Well, I will cover them. I just let me check. ICD-10, they'll be in webinar 5. They'll be in webinar 5.
Okay, so I think that addressed a question that would ICD-10 and HL7.
They will be covered. So HL7, I know I'm planning to cover at the moment in webinar 4. But between 4 and 5, they will definitely be covered. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Another question from Syed Mursalin. Is there some other toolkit for eHealth planning than the WHO ITU National eHealth Strategy Toolkit?
That's a good question. Thank you for that. I'm not familiar with one. But that's not to say that it doesn't exist. I'm not familiar with one that's been published as a generic eHealth strategy toolkit. I don't know whether Alvin knows of one, but I'm not familiar with one. I can think of countries that have done very good eHealth strategies, but nothing that is, indeed, as Alvin saying, nothing that's specific to health. Good question. Thank you for that.
Okay. So there would be, again, can you repeat that? There would be no specific eHealth strategy toolkit that is being recommended, but I think there are other existing trainings to develop eHealth strategy.
Let me just clarify that. What we are recommending, and the thinking behind the course and WHO's perspective, and the reason that it was, I think WHO and ITU have been demonstrating, in a sense, global leadership on eHealth because they took the initiative to develop the eHealth toolkit. And the reason that I and James August came from WHO to Manila last September was to help colleagues there understand that toolkit and begin to think through how they can apply it in their countries. And this series of webinars is really taking that on to a further stage that says, well, it's good that we know how to develop a strategy and a vision, but how do we turn the action plans into things that we have got the skills to deliver? So I think that this course is geared to helping you use the WHO ITU eHealth Strategy Toolkit, but I will just check whether there are others before May the 5th. And if there are, I will mention them, but I'm not going to change the basic focus of the course in this respect.
Okay, right. I think you have to. Thank you so much on that, for addressing that question. This is a response from Dina Ningrum. In my city, there lacks an HIS standard. On the other side, quantity and quality of HIS is needed in decision making. How does strategy fix the problem? Did I make myself clear? That's a question of.
Strategy doesn't fix the problem. It helps identify what the problem is and what does need to happen to fix the problems around strategy are having around standards is to make sure, for example, that coding clerks have got all the right training and that managers have got enough training to appreciate the importance of having quality data going into HIS solutions, and that they are also trained in using the information that comes out of it. So strategy by itself doesn't solve the issue. The issue is solved when you found the right ways to deliver the particular solutions and applications and training and technology that is needed to deliver a good health information system locally. And that is a really difficult task. You know, it's not straightforward at all. We all need to help each other to do it.
All right. Okay, so that's the key to making both ends meet, from resources to what is available. So Peter, we have more questions still from Need Alan Benosa, from Aman Rana, from Dr. Jarga, from Ali Rashidi, and from Muhammad Maruf Khan, but I think we only have 2 minutes and we have to close by exactly 4 p.m. because it's only a 1-hour session. For those who have posted their questions and for those who are still coming in, we are taking note of your questions, and I will be sending those questions to Peter to address that in writing so that we will all have our questions covered, but still taking note that we are on time closing this. So again, thank you so much, Peter, for this session. We will be seeing each other on May 5 for the very first session of the AeHIN Academy. So just today we have covered an overview of the 8 sessions of this AeHIN Academy, and we have addressed questions concerning the specifics of the topics. On May 5 will be the first session for our AeHIN Academy, and I encourage everyone to participate and engage their colleagues and their networks to enroll in the course. Please sign up at bit.ly.com/AeHIN Hour, and you can see other announcements of our AeHIN activities in our website and in our social media accounts on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. If you have more questions, you can send it to secretariat@aehin.org. and we will respond to you the soonest. For those who have attended the session, I will be emailing you a summary of the session plus some materials which you can use for the next session on May 5. I would just like to point this question from Maruf that yes, we will be, our classes are on Mondays and on Fridays, but the last session will be on Wednesday for the recap and refreshment course. Any last words to them, Peter, before we end our session?
Sign up. Thank you, and sign up.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. Just a recap, we had 17 countries online. We have participants from Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Mongolia, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. I hope I was able to cover everyone, and also the Philippines, yes. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you on May 5. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody. Thanks.